Welcome to Blackbird Writers presents author interviews. Today, I'm speaking with Sheila Lowe. She writes nonfiction books about handwriting and behavior. She has worked in the field of handwriting analysis for more than 4 decades with clients from all around the world. She has been qualified to testify in cases of handwriting authentication since 1985 and has also been qualified in personality assessment. In 2007, she published her first mystery, Poison Pen. Oh, and I have that right here. I think I
that's
have
the wrong
old
cover.
It's the
Yeah,
old cover. Never
that's
mind.
the old cover. I don't know.
But
The new ones are out in the car.
Yeah, the forensic handwriting series has 8 books starring fictional handwriting analyst Claudia Rose. Also, Sheila's paranormal mystery series, Beyond the Veil, debuted in 2019. This year, she published her memoir, Growing from the Ashes. Please welcome Sheila Lowe.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Yeah, I do have the right cover on this one.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. It was really great and so interesting to learn about, your past and how you got involved in handwriting and the paranormal stuff too. And with 5 nonfiction books and 11 mysteries, you are no stranger to the publishing world.
Actually, it's a little more than that, but that's okay. I have a
it
total
more?
of 18 books.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't think, oh, I'm
11
sorry,
novels.
I missed a few.
No, it's okay. 11 novels and 6 handwriting books and the memoir.
Oh my goodness. So what prompted you to write your memoir?
Spirit did. I was ignoring it for a long time. I'm kind of a psychic junkie. And for a while there, several years ago, I was getting readings, and every time different people, and they kept saying, Spirit's saying you need to write something autobiographical. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to write about myself. But eventually, at the end of last year, I kept hearing it, and I thought, well, maybe because I'm not listening, it's keeping me from doing some other things that I want to happen. So, okay, I'll do it. So that's why I did it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Growing from the Ashes begins with the heartbreaking story of your daughter's murder.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what happened to her?
Yeah, Jennifer was always a troubled girl, and she'd had a closed head injury as a baby. And I have a strong feeling, and psychologists have said that made it hard for her to make good decisions. And even though she is a beautiful girl and very smart, the emotional issues made it really hard for her. And we had a love-hate relationship for most of her life. I mean, I always loved her, but she often hated me. And then one day, when she was probably about 25, she called me up and she said, I don't hate you anymore.
Oh,
So to me, that was her way of saying, I love you.
yeah.
Yeah. And she picked a lot of the wrong men. She was looking for someone to protect her. And sadly, the people that she got were not. I mean, she never had anybody who was physically abusive that I know of. She did have a boyfriend who had her name tattooed on him, which was not, and other stuff. But
Questionable.
yeah, but then she met Tom Schnabel through her friend, his brother. And he was in law enforcement, and he was a big guy, 6'4", good looking, rugged. And she thought that he would be, protect her. And they had a strong, strong attraction. But within a year, less than a year, 9 months, he had killed her and himself.
Wow.
Yeah, he worked for the federal agency, the INS, which is now, I believe, Homeland Security. I think that's the same agency, or the INS is subsumed into that agency.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been so hard. I don't know if I would have been able to, go on after something like that. I'm sure it was very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, it's not a choice you make,
Right,
and it's not something that you can prepare for ever.
right.
It's
Ever.
just, no, it's
Yeah.
not. And when the sheriff investigator called to tell me, and I didn't get his name when he first said who, what he was calling about. It was just, I just immediately knew it was Tom. There were other things that it could have been, but when he said, "I'm sorry to tell you, your daughter's been murdered," I just knew, what had happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So was it at this time in your life that you decided to learn more about spirits and the afterworld?
Yes, although, I grew up in a strict religious household where that wasn't allowed, where the spirit world was the demons. And so I'd always been afraid of it. But my daughter was very interested in it. And over the few years before this happened, I had started becoming more open to it and started going to psychics and stuff. So it was when she was killed, I wanted to know more, obviously what happens next. And she began to contact me immediately. So, it certainly opened me up to it.
Wow. And you said you grew up in a religious household. Your parents were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, my mother was.
Okay.
My father pretended to be for about 2 years to please her, but my mother, and she still is, even though she's in dementia, that's the only thing she remembers.
Yeah. And I think having that upbringing makes you such an unlikely candidate for someone who believes in life after death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about the doctrines in that religion that and the difficulties that you faced?
Yeah, well, as far as that goes, they tell you don't meditate, because if you meditate, you are clearing your mind, and that leaves rooms for the demons to come in, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And in fact, when my mother still was mentally sound some years ago, I called her. I haven't seen her since my daughter's funeral because she won't be in contact with me even then. And I said, well, I'm going to be in your area about 150 miles from where I live. I said, I'd like to come and see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. And she said, do you still have those tarot cards, as she put it? And I'd never told her I had tarot cards. But I said, I'm not going to bring any tarot cards to your house. And she said, it doesn't matter if you've got them. You still have the demons. And I said, well, if that was true, in all the years that I've had tarot cards, at least 20 years, why haven't the demons bothered me? And her answer was, they're very clever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you ask about the doctrines, and one of the things that I used, my fourth book, which is called Last Rites, WRITES, is about a religious cult. And anybody who came from Jehovah's Witnesses would recognize a lot of stuff in that book. Mm-hmm. And I took a line from one of their publications because I thought it just was so telling. And it was, brothers, we would not want to engage in independent thinking. Yeah, I think that's pretty scary.
That's scary.
Yes.
To me anyway.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yeah. Well, it's really brainwashing.
Yes.
And if I hadn't got kicked out for the second time on my 35th birthday, I'd probably still be in it. Mm-hmm. But spirit hit me upside of the head with a 2x4. And this time I listened.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
Yeah.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. So in the memoir, you also write about what drew you to the world of handwriting analysis. So what are your first memories of that time, and how did you get interested in that?
That's a really long time ago. You have to go all the way back to 1967, before you were born. And I
Not
was
quite.
almost. I was a senior in high school, and I was dating a Jehovah's Witness boy, of course, because you couldn't look outside. And his mother had read a book about handwriting analysis, and she asked to analyze mine.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of blown away by the stuff she said that was so true.
Hmm.
So I started reading all the books that I could find on that subject. And then after about 10 years, I found a book that listed some courses. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one in the world doing this. And so I took a course, took more courses, and eventually became certified. So it was an avocation for a long time, but eventually in 1989, when I got fired from my job, I decided that that was the time for me to go full time and start a business, a practice.
Oh, that's really cool. You did you have like connections that helped you find your footing in the field?
Yeah, in 1985, I started a chapter of the American Handwriting Analysis Foundation in the LA area. The guy who I took the course from, Charlie Cole, had founded this nonprofit organization in 1967, the same year that I started studying handwriting. And so he had set up chapters around the country, and I contacted him, and he gave me a list of interested people who had contacted him.
Huh.
And so we all got together and formed a chapter.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that was how it started. I 40 years later, I became the president of the organization and served for 10 years until last year.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. So you have a lot of connections in the field, obviously.
Yes.
And you've been called upon to give expert testimony in criminal cases as well. And what types of court cases are you asked to testify?
Well, the criminal cases are much fewer than the civil cases.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I have testified about 75 times, and most of them being civil cases. So somebody forges a will, dear old dad gets married to this young bimbo, and then he dies, and she comes out with this new will, cutting out his former children and naming her children. And so his children come along and say, this is not our dad's signature or mother, equal opportunity forging.
How funny.
And so then it's up to me to give an opinion and testify as to whether the signature is authentic or not. And there's, contracts and deeds. But in the criminal side, there might be a confession letter or an anonymous note, a threat letter, a ransom note, for instance, things like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a fascinating life, and that's why I loved reading the memoir, because and so I don't want to give everything away in my questions today, because we want people to read your book.
We do.
Yes. And so your Beyond the Veil series stars a character who speaks with the dead. I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit here, back and forth between the paranormal and the writing life. So have you ever experienced a medium conversing with someone on the other side?
Oh, many, many, many times. Yes, it's something I do quite regularly.
How do you know it's real?
Because of the evidence that they bring through.
Yeah. Things
that they say that nobody else could know, because they're so insignificant and personal. You want me to give you an example?
Sure.
Okay. And this is actually in the book, I think. I was dating a guy, Arnie, and he had this crazy hair, looked like Einstein. It's just all over the place. And he was known for his hair. And he died. And he was known for other stuff too, but that was a thing. And so about a month after he died, I had a reading with Robert Brown, who is one of the very best mediums I've ever talked to. He's in England, and we had a phone session. And he didn't know anything about me. He just had my first name. So he started and he said, there's a man standing behind you, and he's talking about that. And he died of a heart attack. And he talked on about it. And he said, he's saying to me, I tried to impress her with my hair. You know, I mean, it was being funny, obviously. And who else is going to say that? It just meant a lot to me. And some other things that he said that like that.
Right. That were honest and truly that man's words, or
Yeah, he's there.
yeah,
He's talking directly to me.
that was great. That's so cool. I haven't done a lot of psychic mediums, but I feel like the evidence is definitely there that it's real. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit scared to find out what I would learn.
Well, you know, what you would learn is that your loved ones are still very much alive, and that
Yeah.
they're still involved in your life. I find it very comforting to know
Oh
that.
yeah. And I know I've had experiences where there's no mistake, you know,
Mhm.
and all that just makes me want to cry. So
Yes, I never used to be a crier, but yeah, those things can set me off.
yeah. So how does writing fiction tie all of the elements of your life together? Or does it? Does it help?
Well, you know, I mean, my character in my forensic handwriting mysteries, Claudia Rose, does the same kind of work I do.
Mm-hmm.
She gets into a lot more trouble than I do. And she has a wonderful relationship with Joel Jovanich, who is a LAPD detective. And I'd like to, you know, maybe find somebody like him, but we do the same kind of work.
Yeah.
And in the Beyond the Veil series, well, of course, my interest in the other side is something that I can bring out and share with people. And I've had emails from quite a few people saying that it really helped them to read that and to know where to look, because I put resources in the book, in the back of the book, where to look.
Yeah.
And then I have some crossover books where Claudia knows the characters, or at least one of the characters, two of the characters in the Beyond the Veil series. They're friends.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool.
there's crossovers.
Oh, neat. And for people interested in the handwriting analysis, which of your books do you recommend?
You know, years ago in 2000, I wrote The Complete Idiot's Guide to Handwriting Analysis. And then in 2007, it came out again in another edition. Now it's out of print, so I rewrote it, but made it better. And I changed the name. It's called, what is it called? Reading Between the Lines, Decoding Handwriting.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's like a complete basic book, and it has a whole lot of really interesting, famous samples in it, famous people samples.
Oh, neat. And one of your books is called Graphotherapy.
Mhm.
And what is that and how does that work?
Well, think of it this way. Your handwriting reflects who you are, and it changes as you grow and change. Well, it's true the other way around. You can make changes in your handwriting that will be reflected in your personality. So say you want to be more organized, or you want to be more emotionally released, things like that. It's not going to make you into something that you're not, but it
Right.
brings out aspects of your personality that may be suppressed for some reason. So it doesn't ask you to change your handwriting, not bits and pieces of it. It teaches you form drawings. Like if you remember when you're in third grade
Oh,
and you learned those
like cursive.
exercises for
Yep.
yes, running ovals and loop to loops and things like that. It's those kinds of exercises done to music, particularly Mozart, or like I like to use Pachelbel's canon for some of them.
Okay.
And also using affirmations. So you're anchoring the cognition of the affirmation with the movement of the handwriting and the music, and they all work together to create new neural pathways in the brain to help you make the changes that you want to see.
Oh, wow. How interesting. That sounds maybe like something that might be worth trying, you know? It could
People
be
find it
fun.
effective. Yeah,
I
it really
bet.
works.
Yeah.
I do it myself. If I'm having, I don't know if it's really writer's block, if I'm having a little trouble getting started with something, I'll do some of the exercises to kind of loosen up and let some of the, the ideas start flowing. Because
Uh-huh.
using pen and paper or whatever writing instrument you want to use lights up different areas of the brain than using a keyboard.
Right.
Published research shows this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I totally believe that true. And for me, it really stimulates that creativity. So if I'm not sure what to write, I can start, writing a little bit about my character or what's happening that day in the life of my character. And that usually gets me thinking pretty quickly. And all of a sudden I know what's going on. So,
exactly.
yeah. So yeah, I can see how that would be, and muscle memory and all of that. I know that it's possible to change those things.
You certainly can.
Yeah. So
I looked away because I hear my gardener. He's going to come to my window and try to talk to me.
well, so that you can talk to your gardener. Is there anything else that you would like to tell listeners today?
There's so many things. Just keep reading. Hope you read my books.
Yeah.
But just keep reading because authors need you. You're the readers.
And where can readers find you?
Well, anywhere books are sold. And the new book, Growing from the Ashes, my memoir, is coming out in audiobook within, I don't know, probably the next couple weeks. So
great.
If you can't read, listen.
And you also have a kind of newish website.
Yeah, well, I switched platforms, but it's still SheilaLoweBooks.com for my books, and just SheilaLowe.com if you're interested in handwriting analysis, learning, getting courses. And there is actually a 1-hour introductory video free to download if you want to know what space, form, and movement in handwriting is all about.
Oh, that's cool. Great. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Sheila.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
All right.
Okay.
And we'll see you later.
All right. And there he is.